So welcome back, and this time we're at big mistake number 3. So what is big mistake number 3? Well, it's interesting actually, because I would guess most people would never guess that this is one of our biggest mistakes, but it really is about...
It's about a complete misunderstanding, no understanding about what really attracts men to women and women to men.
Yeah,
that's the biggie.
Yeah, and the key word is the don't understand. Yeah, because actually, if we said to you, what attracts a man to a woman and a woman to a man, you'd almost definitely come up with something that's been pretty much programmed into you. Yeah. So, for example, let's just take for guys. They'll be looking at women's magazines. They'll be looking at women on the television, and they'll have an image in their mind. If they closed their eyes and said, "Okay, I've got an image," and then could actually draw that woman, most men would draw a pretty archetype, modern day sexy woman.
Yeah, so it would be about looks, and therefore then what's happening for women is women are believing that what is attractive to a man is being
the same thing.
The kind of archetype, which is very unfair to men, but I can say it, of course, is like blonde and busty, and that's okay, nothing else matters kind of thing. But in actual fact, what we do as women is we go, well, like, to be attractive to men, we've got to look a certain way, we've got to be a certain way. So that's the problem, is what women do is they go, I'm too old, too young, too fat, too thin, I've got to be a size 10, all that kind of stuff. And of course men have been thinking that that's what their ideal woman looks like.
Yeah, men often look into themselves and go, okay, so what would attract a woman? And of course, they're sort of, again, read magazines and what have you, and they look and they go, okay, so I've got to have the right aftershave, I've got to have the right haircut, I've got to get the right clothes on, this will attract a woman, and then I can get lots of sex. That's what most men are thinking. But you see, underneath all that, it's not really what we want, is it? I think in the UK this year there's going to be something like 300,000 people, 300,000 couples, at 600,000 people are going to get married. And they're going to walk up to, if they're in church, to the altar, if they're in the registry office, and they're going to make vows primarily for life. Primarily that's what they're going to say to each other. So really underlying this sort of, I just want to get a partner, there's an innate part of us that wants to have a long-term relationship, preferably one for life. And most people that are going into a relationship are looking for a lifelong relationship. And of course there's always going to be people that are going, well, I'm not. But just trust me, that is the majority of people would like to have a long-term loving relationship. So this is the sort of things, the mistakes they make. We have this guy, we happened to go round his house, and he came in. We were in his house actually with somebody else, and he came in. It was like a Saturday morning, and he's come in with all these shopping bags, and he's put them down on the floor. And I've said to him, well, where you been? He said, well, and he's got all his hair spiked up, and he's all looking the $1 million, And he said, well, I've got a date tonight, So what's going on in his head? Well, I can guess as a man what's going on in his head is, I'm going on a date tonight, what am I going to do with this woman? But of course what he's actually doing is he's putting on like an external mask. So he's now going to pretend to be something that he really isn't. So of course out comes all these bags with all these great clothes in. But interestingly enough, just earlier before he came in, I had to go and use the toilet in his house, and there's 2 toilets in his house, and the other one was in use. So they said, oh, don't worry, go in, so-and-so's toilet. Well, of course, to get to his toilet, it was an ensuite bathroom next to his bedroom. I had to walk through his bedroom. Well, I opened the door, and it was like a disaster zone, a complete disaster zone. It was a complete mess. Now, of course, this told me much more about what goes on in this man's world. He's the way he lives, what really is likely to attract. But of course, what he's doing is he's putting on his stereotype mask, thinking, okay, this is what I need to attract a woman. But of course, it's really not that. That's not what it's about.
Yeah, because also he's buying into the stereotype as well, because he's kind of going, well, women are attracted to men that look good. What does that mean? That it shows that he's got money and status, and and he's tall, dark, and handsome as well. It's kind of like he's putting on this show of being the archetype. Well, so of course what he doesn't understand, and what women are not understanding, is that actually that's just a mask. It's just a front. But actually what does, and also that won't last.
No,
because as Tony was just saying, you know, it's not, we don't want to attract somebody just for a minute or for a night, or we want to be in consistent attraction so that we have this consistent relationship.
Yeah.
And of course those mistakes that we're making there is we're going, you know, look, it's all about somebody's going to be attracted to the way we look or the way that we appear to be living our lives.
Absolutely. So of course he's going out on that night, you know, and many people going out whatever night they're going on, they're going to nightclubs and bars and discos and all sorts of things, yeah, and they're looking $1 million. The girls are doing exactly the same, you know, they get their glad rags on, they've got the lipstick on, they're looking like ready to kill, but of course what's going on behind all that is so much more important. So, you know, the big misunderstanding about how you attract is that people get into short-term relationships because as soon as they realise they're in a relationship with a mask and they don't really like what's behind that mask, it all falls to bits. So what is the secret? And really we need you to become aware. So remember the 2-step rule. What we're trying to get you to do right now is be aware. So what did I do to attract my partner if you've already got one? Now, if that's 20 years ago, you know, think back to 20 years ago. What did I do to attract this person? And is our attraction today as good as it was 20 years ago? Or have something's happened to move us apart? Now, if you're in a young relationship, you know, maybe you've still got that attraction going on. Or, you know, for many people, of course, it falls apart quite quickly. That attraction, you suddenly think, who is this person I'm waking up with in the morning? You know, and they're not what I bought into when I met them in the disco type thing. So
so what is it? And it's such a fundamental, and I mean, I just think about a good example to kind of lead you into it is we had a guy came here and worked with us for quite some time and did a lot of coaching with him and everything, and he's like, you know, actually talking about stereotypes, you know, really good looking, you know, very wealthy, really great guy, you know, and just not perhaps showing up in quite as strong as the driver as he could have been. But actually what was interesting is he kept attracting really, you know, good looking, which is great. I mean, we're not saying we don't want to be good looking, we don't want to say we don't want to take care of our appearance, that's not what we're saying. But then he was bringing them to us. Actually, it felt a bit like he was just saying it's worse than introducing somebody to your parents, you know, coming along to Tony and Nikki and going, this is my latest partner, what do you think? And we were just kind of going, well, you know, these women, they look fantastic. They were all fabulous looking, weren't they? Beautifully dressed and everything. But then we were finding out, we were going, well, so what is it that's causing you to go, well, what do you think? What do you actually think? And what he said to us was, this woman in particular, I remember the one that he brought along, she is so miserable. She's so negative. She's so fearful. She's so worried about everything. She's so, you know, like critical of everybody. She's judgmental about, I mean, she was just running a really like, well, just not in a good space, as we would call it. And of course then we're saying to him things like, well, how does she live her life? You know, he's going, oh, you know, you don't even want to see the way that she lives and the way, you know, she looks fantastic when she goes out, but she's not happy. She's not happy where she's living. And so the fundamental is, it's about being happy inside of yourself.
Absolutely.
Now that might sound like such a kind of cliche. It's no more of a cliche than, you know, tall, dark and handsome or blonde and busty, of course. But it's like, you know, it's the fundamental. And, you know, it's so common to get into a relationship from this whole physical attraction thing, or from the looks and from the mask that we put on, and then we find out actually that with somebody who's not happy. And, you know, so you could argue, you could say, oh, well, then you just got to find somebody that's really happy. But of course, unless you're happy yourself, in yourself, having the life you would want to, the great thing that happened when I met Tony, and actually it was really funny because it really makes this point such a lot, is that I'd actually, because of the, you know, the learning that I'd done for myself, is I'd actually learned to take care of my appearance, but not to believe that that's what was going to attract a person. So actually, we had some time that we spent together in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, and I remember actually, you know, kind of having been on a long plane ride from China, from my friend's place to Malaysia, and you know, getting off the plane, and Tony was there to meet me, and yes, I did go into the bathroom and, you know, put a bit of lipstick on and to just brush my hair. But I was actually just being completely me, completely happy, not putting on any sort of mask. And of course, guess what? I met somebody who was doing the same. And the great thing about, the demonstration, or our relationship, and what's such a good example, is that I met somebody who was not putting on any kind of mask, who was having a great life himself, who was completely happy in the way he was living his life. And so was I. So guess what? You get two people who are both happy in themselves. That is the basis of a great relationship. And of course, it has to continue.
Good. So we trust you're coming into the awareness now that it's not about external looks, it's about your own personal happiness, attracting somebody else that's happy. So a good thing to do here is to just reflect. So you have to go to step 2 is acceptance. So step 2 is really about, okay, so think about it for a second. If you're in a relationship or you're not in a relationship, this doesn't matter, it works for everyone. If you were to write down what would your perfect idyllic relationship look like, and just spend some time. It's a great little exercise to do, so you can actually write it down and then actually read it back to yourself and go, okay, so to attract someone like that, people always write down a relationship that they love that's like right up here, it's got like very high, beautiful, loving energy about
happy.
it. Yeah,
the person's always happy.
Yeah, always going to be happy in themselves and happy with their life and everything. Yeah, and then compare what you're looking for. Again, if you're in a relationship, you want this great, high, happy, loving relationship, and then you have to go inside and go, yeah, but what am I doing to consistently attract somebody that's living a life like that? Well, if you're right down here in low energy, then you, trust me, are never going to attract and meet somebody who's in high energy. It's always said that you will attract somebody who's in a similar energy. So if you're putting on a big fat mask, they'll be putting on a big fat mask, and before you know where you are, the mask will be off and you'll be going, how did I get in a relationship with this person? And that could be 5 minutes in, or it could be 50 years in, so it's about...
Yeah, because the other thing that happens, the other misunderstanding that we often talk about, isn't it, is when we're in a long-term relationship. So say you're in a long-term relationship, and most common thing that's happening is you're not having the passion in the relationship. We did some coaching with a young couple actually, fairly young couple. They've been together about 4 or 5 years, haven't they? And they were saying, basically came to us saying, there is no passion in our relationship. We're like basically leading separate lives. And what do we do? And we talked to them about this kind of concept, and they kept saying, no, that's like not what it is. It's I just need to be, he said, I just need to be more romantic. And of course this is a fallacy, that what people think is that if she is one way during the day and then she puts on some sexy underwear, that's going to work, or he goes, buys her some flowers and takes her out for a meal, which is what he doesn't normally do. They think that that's going to fix it. And it won't, because actually what you're much more likely to be attracted to is somebody who is happy in themselves. Now, how do you get happy in yourself? Well, that's a huge subject. But of course, the number one thing is, it's a bit like big mistake number 1, of course, here, is to look at yourself and go, well, you know what? It's not about the other person to fix this for me or to do something that I like. This is about me finding what it is within me that causes me to be happy.
Yeah, and something certainly that I did to work this out was to just ask myself a dead simple question, one of our favourite questions. On a scale of 0 to 10, well, let me just go inside and say, well, how happy am I really with life? And you can look at all different areas of life, or you can just take an overall stab at it. And certainly before I realised that my life was really not good because I wasn't aware of it, when I became into the awareness and I started being really honest with myself, I scored myself out of 100, funny enough, I scored 54. So it's like 5.5, 5.5 happy. Well, guess what? I'm having a 5.5 happy experience in all areas of my life.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I recognised that being happy was a sort of something I needed to set out to achieve for myself, then of course that's when I met Nikki. I was scoring like 88 when I met Nikki, so I was like nearly a 9. Yeah. And then I met somebody else who, interestingly, was also scoring a 9. Yeah. I did a little test thing with her, and I just asked really.
Yeah,
so
amazing.
It's all about acceptance. If you can accept, what, if I'm really honest with myself right now, I'm a 6, or maybe I'm a 3. If you're a 9, you don't need to be watching this. To be honest, you don't need to be watching it. But be aware of your own level of happiness and accept that's where you are, and then say, okay, so what am I going to do about that? That's really as simple as it is. And then you'll start to understand what really attracts the great relationship that you really want in the first place. That one with longevity and love and joy and all those beautiful things that we all search for. So that's big mistake number 3. So hang in there. I trust you're getting something fantastic from these big mistakes, and we'll be back with big mistake number 4. So we'll see you then.